In this episode of PulsePoint, we'll update you on these topics. Trust in New Zealand news media plummets. An important legal case in Australia could change the definition of a woman. Scotland's new hate crime law criminalises freedom of speech. Atheist Richard Dawkins claims to be a cultural Christian. A new Dutch study suggests that most kids grow out of desire to change sex. And finally, former President Donald Trump has laid out his policy on abortion this week. Welcome to PulsePoint, the latest media stories and research related to family and society that you need to know about from both New Zealand and overseas. Let's cut through the spin and uncover the real issue. I'm Tambi Stowers. A new report shows a significant fall in the trust of our media by New Zealanders. The report was produced by the AUT Research Centre for Journalism, Media and Democracy. In the key findings, 53% of New Zealanders trusted the news in 2020. In 2024, that figure was just 33%. In 5 years, general trust in the news has fallen 20 percentage points. Just 1 in 3 New Zealanders now trust the news media. Compared internationally, we are competing with the UK and the US for the lowest levels of trust. In terms of trust in the individual news media outlets, all show a drop in trust. Since 2020, the main outlets have actually dropped around 25 to 30%. But here's the key graph. What are the reasons not to trust the news? The reporting in the news is biased and not balanced. News is too much of a result of political leaning of the newsroom. The news is too agenda-driven and lacks factual information. There is a lack of transparency in the way the news media operates. And 61% say government financial support for the media in New Zealand means you cannot trust journalists to hold the government to account. In other questions asked, 84% of respondents were concerned about fake news. 96% of respondents, almost all of us, were concerned about stories where facts are spun or twisted to push a particular agenda. Bob McCoskrie on MacBlock has done an in-depth analysis of this report. You can go to familyfirst.nz to watch the full presentation. We need a media that we can trust. An important legal case on the definition of a woman is happening in Australia this week. Roxanne Tickle, a transgender woman from New South Wales, a biological male, is suing the woman-only social media app Giggle for Girls after he was blocked from using the platform. The case means the federal court will decide what a woman is in Australia. Giggle was designed to help girls and women connect to make it easy to find friends or flatmates, travel companions, or to swap stories about pregnancy, fashion, and makeup.
That's Sal Grover. In 2020, she founded an app called Giggle. Currently inactive, Giggle is marketed as a female-only social networking app that allows women to find flatmates, friends and offer emotional support. And this is Roxanne Tickle. In 2021, Roxanne was initially accepted and then denied access to Sal Grover's app.
Here is what Roxanne said about why he wants to be a woman.
Roxy, you're a transgender woman from regional New South Wales. You played hockey for 10 years from when you were 16 years old, but you stopped when you were 26. Why?
Something didn't feel quite right, and it has taken me decades longer to look back and try and dissect that and understand that I really didn't like being in the male changing rooms. I felt really uncomfortable there. I didn't like the smells or the sounds.
This is a significant case that we need to keep an eye on because whatever decision is made, whether in favor of biology or in favor of gender ideology, will have implications for not only Australia, but it could have a trickle-down effect on how we define women in New Zealand. You can now sign a petition on whatisawoman.nz to ensure that woman is to be defined as an adult human female in all our laws, public policies, and regulations. According to Scotland's new hate crime laws, saying a woman as an adult human female could land you in jail. The new hate crime and public order bill came into force last week and is applicable online and even in people's private homes. The new legislation combines existing law on crimes aggravated by prejudice and extends protection for vulnerable groups with a new offense of stirring up hatred. Now, these vulnerable groups include groups characterized by age, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, and being intersex. Should a person be prosecuted under this law, they could be jailed for up to a maximum of 7 years. This new law has faced criticism over its impact on freedom of speech and concerns that it could be used to silence some views, including those who advocate for women-only spaces. Author J.K. Rowling, a prominent critic of transgenderism, called the new law ludicrous, citing that freedom of speech is at an end in Scotland if the accurate description of biological sex is deemed criminal. The same can be said of New Zealand. The world's most famous atheist, Richard Dawkins, the evolutionary biologist and the author of the book titled The God Delusion, says he now identifies as a cultural Christian. In a recent interview, Dawkins was lamenting the declining impact of the Christian faith in Europe, stating that the Christian ethos that shapes Western culture needs to be preserved. Even if Dawkins still believes the truth claims of the Christian faith are nonsense, as he puts it, Dawkins admits that while he is happy with the declining numbers of confessing Christians in Europe, he expressed concerns with the rise of Islam in Britain, claiming that Christianity is compatible with British values in a way Islam is not. He went on to even say Christianity is fundamentally a decent religion, whereas Islam is not.
But there's an active hostility to women, which is promoted, I think, by the holy books of Islam. I'm not talking about individual Muslims, who, of course, are quite different, but the doctrines of Islam, the Hadith and the Quran, is fundamentally hostile to women, hostile to gays, and I find that I like to live in a culturally Christian country, although I do not believe a single word of the Christian faith.
It seems Dawkins is beginning to appreciate the very Christian faith that he so aggressively railed against for so many years, decrying its quote-unquote poisonous influence on Western culture and values as the very same faith that gave birth to the very culture and values he wishes to preserve. What Dawkins needs to note, however, is that there is no fruit of the Christian faith without the root of a Christian church filled with believing Christians. It is therefore in the best interest of the world's most famous atheist to have a Christian church that is alive and growing. He could even go to it. A landmark study from Netherlands published last week and conveniently ignored by the media has found that the majority of gender-confused children grow out of that feeling by the time they are fully grown adults. Researchers in the Netherlands from the University of Groningen tracked more than 2,700 children from age 11 to their mid-20s, asking them every 3 years of feelings about their gender. Results showed at the start of the research around 1 in 10 children express gender non-contentedness to varying degrees. But by age 25, just 1 in 25 said they often or sometimes were discontent with their gender. The researchers concluded the results of the current study might help adolescents to realize that it is normal to have some doubts about one's identity and one's gender identity during this age period, and that this is also relatively common. It is very significant that the study came out of the socially liberal Netherlands because the so-called Dutch protocol, which was developed by 3 clinicians at Utrecht and Amsterdam, has been viewed by many clinicians as the gold standard approach to care for children and teenagers with gender dysphoria. Children are given medical and mental health assessments. Some go on to take medicines that block their natural puberty, and when they're older, receive cross-sex hormones and eventually surgery. The Dutch study shows that we need to pause not puberty, but the chemicalization and castration of our children in a grand social experiment. And finally, former President Donald Trump laid out his policy on abortion this week. He now says each state should follow the will of the people and pass state-specific laws on abortion. He had previously hinted at a federal ban across the country, limiting it to 15 weeks.
Largely, they're coming in with a certain number of weeks, and the number 15 is mentioned. I haven't agreed to any number. I'm going to see. We want to take an issue that was very polarizing and get it settled and solved so everybody can be happy.
But here's what he said this week.
Many people have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights, especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. They wanted it ended. It must be remembered that the Democrats are the radical ones on this position because they support abortion up to and even beyond the 9th month. My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart or, in many cases, your religion or your faith.
And here's what President Biden would do. This is from his State of Union speech last month.
Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
While not specifically endorsing any sort of ban across the country, Trump would be unlikely to veto such a bill if it landed on his desk as president. President Biden wants to reintroduce Roe v. Wade, which allows for abortion up to birth. The unborn child will be voting for Trump as the best option. And that's the latest episode of PulsePoint. You can check out all these stories and more on our website, familyfirst.nz. We'll keep watching the news so that you don't have to. See you next time.